Hello and welcome to a new episode from Circuit Digest. In this webinar series, we have a very special guest, Mr. Pranjal Pande from Statcon Energiaa. Statcon Energiaa is one of the biggest and largest manufacturers of power electronic components in our country. They deal in renewable energy systems. So, to know more about the company and about power electronics industry and renewable energy systems, let's hear from Mr. Pranjal Pande. So, thank you, sir, for joining us here. It's lovely to have you here. So, could you please tell us more about Statcon Energiaa, how it started, what are its vision? Apart from that, what are the services and products you provide?
Yeah, sure, Sharat. And first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm from Statcon Energiaa, and we are one of India's leading power electronics manufacturing companies. So we started in around 1987, and it was started by Mr. Manoj Pande, who is our managing director as of now. So I had actually asked him, and we have a lot of talks regarding the vision of the company, how he started it. And frankly, a lot of engineers start a company because they are engineers and because they can build some product.
Right.
So initially, I would say because they thought that they can do a lot of stuff that is the requirement of the Indian project sector at that time for power electronics.
Right.
And then once they got into the business, they realized that India is in a really dire need of good power electronics manufacturing companies, which can cater to such a huge growing demand of electronics in India. So that is, then they thought that, to indigenize everything, to make everything in India and be one of the global players who have a base in India. So that was with which they started. Now, of course, it has grown into a more renewable bent of mind vision where we want that the entire India's and the world supply can shift onto the renewable power electronics.
So, you hold a great position. You are the director of the company. So, I would like to know that could you please shed some light about the renewable energy, because that is the forte of your company. That's the main thing you're dealing with. How is the current scenario? How is the future scenario in India as well as globally?
All right. Okay. In India, renewable sector, if I can go specific with solar at this point of time, then it is of course one of the blessed countries to have a lot of solar right now.
Right.
And there is an enough sufficiently experienced ecosystem in India that can cater to this demand. The key factor in rooftop storage, rooftop solar across the world, is that in more developed countries, it is mainly to do with cost reduction of the grid electricity that they are getting. So because they are already getting 24/7 electricity supply, and of course it is a bit high, so they are using solar to offset that entire usage. In India, apart from the cost reduction of the grid, a very major application is the backup power.
Right.
So that you can take from the solar storage also. So there is an added demand on top of the cost reduction demand. So that makes India one of the very key markets globally, and that's why you see so many suppliers that are over in India as well. So renewable wise, we are very confident that going at least the next 10 years, there would be no decrease in demand. The growth would always be there.
Right. Like, what challenges do you face while creating a product? You have to keep on your toes and have to innovate, like compete globally. So how difficult it is? What all procedures do you follow? How do you develop your whatever equipments you're developing?
Okay. So on the development part, actually only thing that you can do is to listen to your customers.
Right.
So we have a variety of different customers. There are distributors, there are system installers, then there is the direct tender-based products.
Yes.
So what happens is that each application is different, and you don't have a one-size-fits-all solution. So we have specifically built an application team who goes to the customer and understand the entire application. They go with, and the entire electrical study, the survey of the plant is done. And then they talk with the R&D team to build something very specific. So I'll give you a good example. There is a cold storage in Etawah. So that has a very high motor load of 150 HP.
Okay,
now
that's
that entire thing, that's a lot, yeah. So now that entire thing has to run on solar, and that plant also suffers with 8 hours of power cuts on a daily basis. So they run their 320 kVA DG set, and diesel price, of course, is increasing a lot.
It is increasing.
So we designed a system where entire plant with the 150 HP of motor and 40 kilowatt of load, excess load, would run on a specialized inverter, a specialized solar inverter that has VFD panels attached to it. So both are working together, and then it has a storage factor also. So it has flooded lead acid batteries that we use, and then the entire plant now runs uninterrupted using storage and using solar throughout the day. Now, the amount of savings that you get, that you can directly see. One is that whatever electricity you were using earlier, that is offset. All the diesel that was going into the DG set is now fully negligible.
Right.
And then again, because this is a specialized application, whenever there is a power cut, the ammonia level goes down in such a cold storage. So now that interruption is not there. So that you don't have to compensate extra energy to build up the ammonia levels again. It stays right there because you have got an uninterrupted power supply. So this is just one of the applications that we have developed over this period, and that has come to us because our application team is working very hard along with the customers and clients to understand their needs and customize the solution.
Oh, sounds really interesting. So I was going through your company's website and I realized that you work in multiple domains. It's energy sector and power electronics, but in that you serve clients from defense, railways, and you also cater to international clients. So could you please tell us about some of your clients and major projects?
Sure. Actually, you have I was just talking to Sharad a while back, and he mentioned he's in power electronics also. This is just for the audience. So as you know, that if you make one thing in power electronics, its applications engulf the entire entire sectors that are available for all the projects that are being done in India. So for example, the converter that goes inside an inverter, we realize that same kind of converters in a larger setting would be very useful for the defense sector also, because these large ships and large submarines, when they come to the shore, their batteries have to be immediately discharged and then charged again, and then it has to go sailing back, because it cannot stay on the shore for a long period of time. It will get detected. So we explored defense as a very good client. We have made rectifiers and load banks in megawatt capacities, which no one in India has been able to do till now.
Oh, that's
we
really
make
great.
and we make the ground power unit, the starting units for Indian Air Force aircraft. You might have seen, no aircraft can start on its own. They all need a ground power unit to get started. So we make those. And globally, we found that there is these ABBs and these Siemens, they all have a good brand name, and they are being, we feel that as an Indian company, as an Indian, we feel that, oh my God, these are the top of the line inverters that are being installed somewhere. But we realized, with growing confidence, that it is not that we are in any way lesser than these kind of companies. So we studied their products, we studied their applications, and then we built even more advanced systems, and we replaced a lot of these systems in microgrids across Africa, across Southeast Asia as well. So I think as of today, we have around 250 units that are working as microgrids in Myanmar. And then we supplied a lot to hydro power stations and hydro microgrids in Africa as well. So it is more a question of where the kind of application is, if the customer is in requirement of an energy solution, and then you have a global market available to supply your product.
Yeah, sounds really interesting, and especially the projects you told about. Actually, I was reading your LinkedIn profile and I realized that you recently shipped or completed a project with Indian Navy, a DC converter. Would you be able to talk about that if it's not classified or something?
Sure. No. Actually, our thing is not classified. Their thing is classified.
Right.
It is basically a rectifier. It is, as you have seen your mobile chargers.
Yes.
So what it is doing the exact same thing. It is making AC into DC. So what this is doing as well, it is doing in very high capacity. So it is 1520 kilowatts of power. So it is doing, like for example, when a ship goes to sailing or when a submarine goes to sailing, it has huge battery banks. So whenever this comes on to the shore after a lot of days of sailing, the batteries have to be discharged first through a load bank. This also is good for its health, and then it is charged. So this rectifier does the charging part of the entire thing. So this charger, this AC to DC charger, so now the power electronics plus the engineering part where it comes into such kind of a product is that now you have built up a very high charger. Now you have to compensate for the heat that is being generated into the system. They need a mobile product. So you need the kind of components that will withstand the vibrations when this thing moves. You have to have something that is not very, very heavy, because transportation would be a problem. So this is where, we excel in India, being an Indian company, that we work according to the local conditions of the project that has to be done. So, this is the beauty of power electronics. No company in the world can ever say ki they will build this right the first time, or they are the best in what they do. It is about the engineering that is specific to that kind of application that you have to fulfill. So this was a very good product for us, and this is the first time that such a high rating is going. So the next one we are making is obviously double this rating. It's almost 3 megawatts. So hopefully that will be completed soon as well.
Yeah, it sounds really challenging and really interesting at the same time. So
Yes.
recently, the whole world was suffering from COVID, and because of that,
Yeah.
we faced a lot of lockdowns. But one of the main issues for all the electronic company or electronic companies that there's a shortage of semiconductor in the industry. So how is it affecting
Yeah.
power electronic company or a renewable energy company, and how is it affecting smaller companies as well?
Okay, so basically everyone who is using some kind of chip or some kind
Mm-hmm.
of semiconductor, so they are facing either huge lead times or they are facing huge increase in cost. I'll give you an example. We were using an IC for 290 rupees. So that price has gone to 2900 rupees if we want it at the same lead time as before. Otherwise, there are lead times of 52 weeks. So it is as good as them not being able
Right.
to give, because no one will wait 1 year for the entire
Mm-hmm.
thing. So
True.
after COVID, there was a lot of pent up demand, and the market again bounced back. So that demand is there, but I feel that supply is yet to meet the demand as it was doing before. And this semiconductor shortage is not something that I see being resolved very fast or within this year. It will take at least first quarter of next year, if not more, for things to normalize. So the that effect that had started when COVID was there, so that has actually dominoed further. It has not reduced a lot. So there will be some shortages, I feel, but then again, companies have to plan for it better.
Yeah, so like the cost have increased 10 times the original cost, and
10
the
times, yes.
butterfly effect is just causing a havoc overall. So
It is.
yeah, and apart from that, even there's one more news these days that China is facing energy crisis because the government is artificially cutting their energies or not
Yes.
providing enough energy to the manufacturers in order to curb pollution. So how is it
Yes.
affecting Indian manufacturer? Is it a kind of boon for Indian manufacturer or it's a bane?
It's just one thing after the another,
Right.
supply chain issues, and then China is
Mhm.
doing this. So anyway, even before this, China's factories were facing problems because of this COVID induced lockdowns, and then one of their ports had closed. So supply chains were already suffering, and now with this news that their factories are running for 3 hours or 4 hours daily, their production output will decrease. And if their production output decreases, then I am sure the world's production output decreases.
Mhm.
It is nothing that can run parallel to China. We are a very
Mhm.
connected economy, and especially power electronics is globally a very connected economy, and everyone
Right.
depends on everyone else to do their part.
Right.
If China's factories productions go down, then I
Mhm.
feel that one of the major things to suffer would be steel. And if
Mhm.
steel suffers, then almost everyone suffers.
Right.
So here's hoping that they find some turnaround fast enough that their
Mhm.
power industry can provide enough power during these times.
Mhm.
Because even if Indian manufacturers may do some short term gains, may have some short term
Mhm.
gains, but what we need to realize is that we need to immediately invest those gains into our permanent capability increase. Otherwise it's the same old story.
Right.
So some very few people for very little time, they will have some they will see some gains, but otherwise it's not very good for the entire industry.
Okay. But won't it affect like help the Indian industry, Indian manufacturers? Won't it give an artificial push for Indian manufacturer or companies like Statcon Energiaa who are working in this field and who are competing against other companies from China? So won't it be better for Indian companies globally?
We have to innovate a lot if
Right.
and immediately if we are to take advantage of this situation. I'll
Mhm.
give an example. Almost all the displays that we use, all the displays
Right.
in the phone and everywhere else, almost all of it comes from China. There
Mhm.
are few things that if you take from China as compared to if you take from somewhere else, there are huge
Mhm.
difference in cost. And
Right.
we are as an industry, as a power electronic industry, and world over,
Mhm.
I'm not just talking about in India, world over,
Right.
we are dependent a lot on some few components for China only. The
Yes. True.
smaller components that you see in the SMT components that you see that go
Mhm.
into the circuit. So these, most of the market is only from China. Most of the
Right.
suppliers are from China. So if that stops, then electronic market will eventually slow down a bit.
Mhm.
So short term, whatever we have with us right now, whatever products, whatever raw material we have, yes, we will gain with that. We will have an immediately open market where we can sell these products. But after that, we have to plan for the future.
Right. So you talked about innovation. Now, for a company who is in manufacturing, innovation can be only done by engineers, like who is in power electronic engineer. So how difficult it is to get a human resource? Is it easy to find a human resource in a country, or is it hard? And what about the type of people you hire? Do you hire someone from MTech, or do you just take a BTech student and develop them from scratch?
Okay, we actually take from a variety of sources.
Mm-hmm.
I hardly take BTech freshers right now because BTech freshers, the amount of expertise that needs to for a product, that is not taught right now in BTech schools, and it will take a while for them to get developed onto to become such kind of R&D scientists and start developing their own products. So usually what we do is that either experienced BTech candidates, or I personally prefer MTech students who have done their projects in a similar kind of field, because MTech is a very dedicated study, and for 2 years these students along with their professors work on a very strict deadline. They have good work ethic installed into them over this 2 year period, and then they are also keeping abreast of all the latest technology changes that are happening in the industry. So the vetting process, I feel, in good colleges for MTech is very good when it comes to the project that these kids are doing, because these projects can, if the student is entrepreneurial enough, translate into actual industry products when they graduate from their colleges. So I always talk to the professors first, and then on their recommendations we take interviews of MTech students, and then we hire them. But
Okay,
just to
great.
add to your point,
Mm-hmm.
innovation, yes, for the product, obviously it is taken by power electronics engineers. But in a company, innovations have to take place across variety of departments. So
Right.
in fact, quality is one such department where there are a lot of BTech graduates who study the production techniques and bring about a lot of innovation
Mhm.
that helps actually develop the product into what you see right now.
Right. So, uh, just continuing the question,
Yeah.
how is the power electronic industry in India? Like, what is the scope for a student who is doing his master's in power electronics or control system? Because whenever I see MTech students, they hardly get hired. So it is
Mhm.
very difficult for MTech students, especially from a low ranking college, to directly get hired for a big company or get into R&D roles. So how do you see it? And what about the scope of power electronics in India and abroad?
Okay. What I felt, because I had gone through the same process, I am
Mhm.
from HBTI Kanpur, which is a BTech, which is affiliated to UPTU.
Right.
So what I felt was that teachers are not very connected to the industry professionals, and that in turn translate to the students not knowing a lot about these companies, the power electronics companies especially. If even if I ask you or anyone who is your parallel to list down around 20, 30 large companies in India that are doing power electronics research, then it would be very hard for you to find out, because that kind of internet presence or that kind of marketing presence is not there for the companies.
Right.
So I feel that as a student, what we should be doing is that from the first year itself, students should reach out to these companies. Students should find out on their own. There are a lot of forums where they should go and they should talk to these companies and get some kind of internship.
Right.
It is not necessary that it should be a paid internship, although if it is, then good for the student.
Mhm.
But these kind of things really help you understand like what is happening in the industry, and then what am I being taught in the college. I'm not saying that it is wrong what is being taught in the college, but then you will have that perspective when you read your books as to what exactly is what I'm reading going into the product. So my advice would be that students should reach out from the first or second year itself, go
Right.
to the industry, do some basic research work, and then when they come back, they should select a project which is of
Mhm.
actual significance to the industry.
Right.
Like, for example, you were mentioning that you were doing something in EV
Mhm.
auto.
Yes,
So,
sir.
such kind of projects, if someone is doing, then it drastically increases their employability once they're out of college. All the people, all the companies are looking for students who have taken some initiatives on their own
Mhm.
while they are in college, because these 4 years of BTech, they are really the times when you can read about everything, learn about everything, have time to do other stuff as well. And then once it really opens up your mind to the kind of things that you can do. Like, take battery for example. There are lot many battery startups in US who have emanated right out of the college projects. So these students were doing some kind of research, then they formed some molten battery, some sodium sulfur battery, and these kind of things are all right out of school projects. So that we have to realize, and people have to become slightly confident about their own abilities in colleges, that they can do things that are relevant in the industry, but for that they actually have to go into the industry and study about these things.
Right, true. Because most of the companies I've seen in India are usually just procure materials from China or most of the other countries, and they just assemble the parts and sell, just put their own stamp and sell it as a new product. But that is not what R&D is. So how do you think that R&D in India can evolve? Do we have such a culture in India? Is the government doing something for that? And you being in a R&D company, you being a director in a R&D company, you know how the whole ecosystem is. So can you please tell something about that thing? How the government is helping improve the R&D thing?
Yeah. Actually, I can recall one thing that I was in a seminar, and Mr. Anand Mahindra was there as well, and some gentleman, I think he was a Navy officer, so he raised his hand and said, "Ki, why are you guys not making indigenous products for India? You have so much money, you should be doing a lot more." So Mr. Anand Mahindra said, "Dekhiye, what you are saying is not wrong. We have money, but we don't have that kind of money to risk. We have it to invest into the business, but we cannot risk so much capital by building some things when the market is not there. Matlab, if I build a ship today, so will the Navy definitely accept it? Or because if you don't accept it, then it's $2 billion, $3 billion down the drain." So the main key takeaway from that entire thing is that money is there for research, but the risk capital is not there for research. So this is a very broad thing that is in the eyes of the government. They have already noticed it, and they have come up with a lot of good things to address that as well, which I'll tell you. So one is the TIH. It is a technology innovation hub that they have opened up in some eminent colleges. So I am aware that it is in IIT Roorkee, but it is in a lot of colleges. So what they are doing is that they'll give that industry and the college together will submit a project, and then they will evaluate it, and the company has to put in some amount of fund, almost around 10% of the entire budget, and rest of it is supplied by the government. So now what the company is getting, we are getting a lot of capital that we were anyway going to spend on R&D. So now that is being given by the government. The students are going to learn a lot who are taking part in these projects. The college as a whole will get a lot of knowledge because the professors are involved. They are the ones who will learn from here and then disseminate the information to other students. So this kind of risk capital mitigation when it comes to R&D projects, so this has been started by the government, and this is one scheme that I'm telling you about. There is another called Technology Development Fund by DRDO. There are a lot of collaborations between India and other nations, like India and EU have a Horizon project. So these kind of projects bring in money from both nations, and both India and both from European Union, and then the colleges get the money, and then they can give it to the industry to develop the entire thing. So this is very necessary. This is very necessary when it comes to Indian companies and research, because we have to accept that we are a very cost competitive nation, and to take out such amounts for R&D is really tough for any entrepreneur. So this is a good initiative by the government, which should be used by a lot of companies in India.
So I think you answered all the questions I had, and it was really great talking to you, sir. So it was a pleasure hosting you, and we learned a lot. So thanks a lot for coming and giving an interview to us.
Okay, good to hear. Because my point was just that if some students are listening to this, or if there are some professionals who are looking to get into the industry, then there are every company is right now competing with software companies to get the right amount of talent. Because if there is an option, if you have two job offers, then I'm pretty sure that the software company will have the higher package whenever they are giving at an entry level. But students have to realize that power electronics is by no means some industry that is devoid of money. Once you go the steps and you climb the steps in your R&D journey, you will find that power electronics companies, if they have the right candidates, then absolutely their packages are at par with what software is offering. But again, it's a few years down the line. You have to spend a few years in the factory floor doing hard work, doing work in searing heat. But it really pays off, because power electronics in a few years is highly lucrative.
Yeah, true. Actually, the world is all run by or powered by electrical engineers, and no matter whether the energy is renewable or like conventional, the generation, transmission, and distribution, everything, even the storage, depends on power electronics. And the world is changing towards the renewable energy sector because of global warming and because of the trend. So I think, yeah, power electronics is one of the most booming fields.
It is. It is.
So thanks a
Great.
lot for giving the interview, sir. It was really a pleasure talking to you.
Great, Sharad. Great. And thanks, and you did well too.
Thank you.